This video is why use the HeartSync model and introduction for leaders. It's a brilliant way of praying. I've received lots of benefits from it, and people that we minister to using it have seen their lives change. So this is a really short introduction to this really incredible way of praying. Have you ever thought to yourself, part of me would really like to go out there, and another part of me just doesn't want to get off the sofa? You ever do that? You can have conversations with these parts of our hearts, and that's why we pray using HeartSync. We found it fascinating because one part of the heart will hold trauma that people have gone through all their life. Then there's another part of heart that's guarding and protecting all of that. And then there's a part of the heart that makes life work. And this video is for anyone interested. Often leaders would like to know about the model and what lies behind it. And there's another video for those coming to receive prayer, and it's designed to stand alone. But if you watch this video, that second one is complementary to it. So let's get into this. So I've called this Healed Hearts, Happier Lives and Closer to God with HeartSync. We found that as we learn about these parts of our heart and understand their dynamics and prayed with the Lord into them, we found that our heart gradually got healed. It's grown our relationship with God. It's improved my relationship with Ruth, my wife. And with people around us, everything has just got easier and better, and our lives have got happier. And we find that as we pray for people this way, it helps them love. And isn't that the greatest commandment? It helps us to fulfill the call to love God and to love each other. And what we found is that where people are brokenhearted, Jesus wants to heal, to give us a singleness of heart and action, and he draws close to us and helps us to draw close to him and to one another. Now, all of us are brokenhearted or have a divided heart to one degree or another. The Bible talks about this all over the place, but often we just don't notice it. James 1 talks of a mind that doesn't have singleness of thought, but is double-minded and unstable. The psalmist models talking to ourselves when he says, "Why be downcast, O my soul? Put your trust in God." He's saying, why be downcast, to another part of him? This isn't new. This is conversations you've had your whole life when you've been talking to yourself. There's other ministries and psychiatrists and doctors who've recognized this. And they all call it different names, and HeartSync takes those and prays with them. Now, where do we see brokenheartedness? You can see brokenheartedness in unhealed hurt and inner pain. You can see brokenheartedness in trauma responses, in defensiveness, in triggeredness. You can see its effects in conflicted beliefs and double-mindedness. You can see its fruit in a lack of joyful connection with God and others. And we can view this as a separation or desynchronization of the heart and soul and mind of a person. And when I'm sitting with someone and talking with the parts of the heart, it can be fascinating with me. Like I can be in a car and talking to someone's functional part. They get on with the job part of them, and they're talking about work and driving along and getting stuff done, and suddenly someone cuts them up, drives in front of them. They turn into the Incredible Hulk. They're angry and gesticulating, and I think, well, I've just met a hidden part of your heart. And if the driver was me, then I know I've got some healing work to do. As Matthew 12:34 puts it, the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Sometimes it overflows with painful stuff. And what's been fascinating for me as I've been in communication with people is to become more aware of what part of the heart that I'm talking to. And that's a journey that I'm on, and it makes all the difference in the world. The second video, if you want to find it, is the one we give to people coming for prayer, and it describes the parts of the heart in more detail. But stay with me, and I'll show you some testimonies and some key Bible verses. Now, this is Casey. Through receiving a HeartSync, I received that love was bigger and stronger than my pain, which opened up my heart to receive and love. When we started doing this ministry, most of us, if you're looking at this, you're not here for a new technique. There's loads and loads of techniques around. And most of us aren't interested with a new tool in the toolbox. Most of us are really asking, is this real? And does this last? And is it from the Lord? Is this real? Does it last? And is it from the Lord? One therapist put it this way: I watched people for 3 years to check out HeartSync, and sure enough, it was real to them. It lasted in the way that it affected their marriage, it affected their ministries, it affected their career, it affected their personal lives. It lasted. This guy was a Christian, has a doctorate in theology, and really studied it and looked at it. He said, that really was what I was interested in. And that's what we're seeing, that this ministry goes so deep that there's permanent change. Trauma is gone, and all of a sudden something very new begins to happen. Now, you can read these testimonies on the video. You don't need to read them out, because you can listen and read at the same time. So now, it's often profound, but what often it's usually very subtle as well. I was actually just talking to my daughter about the effects of HeartSync, in that you find that something happens that maybe a year ago I'd have responded in an angry way or been a little bit short-tempered, and suddenly find, like, I'm not angry anymore. And you can't figure what's happened, but what's happened is HeartSync has kind of dissolved something inside of me. It's like sanded off a little bit of one of my rough edges. Something that has been transformed. Trauma is gone, and I don't have to be as guarded as I used to be. And so if we're looking for real results, I can tell you that we find real results with this model. Now, some of it's profound, but often it's really subtle. And I think that's a really interesting effect, that it kind of catches up with you, that you kind of think, oh, I hadn't realized it was going to make that kind of change. So what are the scriptures that HeartSync's built on? Well, we all remember Luke 4, where Jesus says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he's anointed me to preach good news to the poor. Now, a Jewish audience would have completed the sentence, like us in England saying, Jack and Jill. Someone in our culture would go and went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Well, Jewish people hearing the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he's anointed me to preach good news to the poor would then have completed that sentence. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom to the captives and release from the darkness to prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. And what we find that in prayer, Jesus does come to heal the brokenhearted, and he's a genius at it. The Old Testament regularly talks about giving us new hearts. Now, this happens at redemption and continues through sanctification. I mean, it's hard to love the Lord your God with all your heart when 2/3 of it often are full of brokenness and trauma. And so we want people to be wholehearted so they can love. With Christians, it's been fascinating to me to know that 2/3 of the heart may not even know Jesus, which has been an amazing revelation, and that we've had to dig deeper with the Lord's help to really understand that. So why do people have broken hearts? Well, soteriologically, it's because there's sin in the world. Developmentally, because bad things happens to us. It happens when our trauma exceeds our capacity for joy. Now, trauma can happen because of bad things happening to us. We often think of that, call that trauma B for bad. But often trauma happens of an absence of good things. We call that A for absence. Trauma prevents synchronization within the entire heart as well as with God and others. In a moment or persistently over time, our hearts become separated from one another due to trauma and false beliefs. This prevents joyful connection with God and others. And we define joy as someone being glad to see you. The people have broken hearts. Like my heart was really changed when I got run over. And a part of my testimony is about receiving the healing from that. But I changed from an instant bad things. But then other parts of my brokenness come because I didn't have all of the love that I might have wanted at different times in my life. So there's bad things and absence that give us broken hearts. Now, bad things are easy to happen. I can tell you about when I was run over and nearly died. And those are really obvious. But the trauma A of absence is much harder to identify because we don't really know what we needed to have, but we didn't have. If you look at your parent as a baby and you get a loving glance or a tiny bit or nothing at all, and you never get the attention you cherish, you're going to get type A absence because you're not getting the eye contact and the connection that your heart really needs and your brain needs to grow. If you never got a hug when you grew up, you never heard someone say they're proud of you. There's nothing bad that happened, but some things were just missing. Some things that would have built joy into your heart weren't there. That's what we call trauma A. And trauma A of absence or trauma B of bad things happening prevents synchronization within the whole heart, as well as with God and others. But Jesus came to heal the brokenhearted. Now, trauma A individuals are often unaware that healing is desirable, and it's also hard to visit painful memories because we've not got the capacity or joy to go back to them. But as Joey Jen Tempo puts it, healing trauma will take place, and it will bring an exponential increase in healing capacity when Jesus is involved. We see that every time. So many of the people coming to our training are licensed professional counsellors and licensed folks, and they're starting to use HeartSync in their practices. They'll call me and they'll tell me, they say, I was working with this one person for 6 months, not making much headway. And in a 2-hour session, we made more progress than we had for 6 months. That's the reason that people come and use HeartSync. Healing broken hearts helps people love better. We help people's hearts synchronize so we can move towards a singleness of heart and action. This means that we're more able to love the Lord our God with all our heart and with all our soul and with all our minds. It really does lead to healed hearts, happier lives, closer to God with HeartSync. And most Christian leaders are not trained to understand the heart, so they can't train others. But mature Christians will seek to understand themselves. Do you know what was in the front of Calvin's front page? What there in the front of his book? Know God and know thyself. 1 Corinthians 14:20 puts it, brothers and sisters, stop thinking like children. In regard to evil, be infants, but in your thinking, be adults. Calvin said that we should think about ourselves and be adult in our thinking. And I'd say we need to think ourselves about our brain and our brokenness, as well as about God and his glory. HeartSync takes that seriously, and it helps people heal. Everyone has parts of the heart. They make up the core human personality. These aspects of the human personality are universal to everyone. And you can have conversations with these parts of the heart. And we found it fascinating because parts of the heart will hold the trauma. And there's parts of the heart that are guarding everything. And there's part of the heart that makes life work. And in HeartSync, we intentionally check in with all these parts and only their extended parts. And we see if they're in relationship with God or not. We heal their pain and trauma. We work to resolve any conflicts that are keeping them separated from a loving relationship with Jesus. And we help people grow in love. You've been having conversations with these parts of the heart, and you've just not named it. And the next video will look at them in more detail. So what can you do next? Join us in the second video. Book a session with Ruth to find out more about what Ruth and I do. You can see our Joy Skills website, or there's also a link to the HeartSync Ministries website as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.